As a property investor, you know the importance of networking. Not only is it a great source to be able to find property deals, but also a great place to be able to find the money in order to get those deals done, as well as being able to build your power team for tradespeople, solicitors, accountants, and people like that. But many people don't really network effectively because they don't really understand how to do it. In this video, I'm going to give you the 5 steps to power networking. If you're watching my videos for the first time, my name is Saj Hussain, and on this channel I share with you my 15 years of property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing journey. When I started out on my own property investing journey, I used to go along to many property networking events and also some business networking events as well, to really try and build up some contacts and connections and learn from other people as well. And if I'm being honest, really I was not a natural networker. I'd really kind of struggle with the idea of being able to be in a room with lots of other people that I've got to go and speak to, and strangers I've never necessarily spoken to before. That just felt really uncomfortable and unnatural for me. But this is a great learned skill, and a skill that can massively benefit you, because ultimately property is about people, and if you understand how you can network effectively with people, it will really help you grow your business. Step 1 is to have a clear objective of what it is ultimately you're trying to achieve from attending that networking event. So you know already whether you're looking for deals, you're looking for money, you're looking for a certain kind of provider or a supplier or a service provider. You've got a clear outcome of what is it you're trying to achieve. You might even have a deal that you're trying to sell, or it may be you're trying to find an investor to come with you on board on that particular deal. I remember the early days when I started networking, I'd go along to these networking events and I'd look for the familiar faces. Then I'd make a beeline for somebody I know, just so it was a familiar face and I could spend a bit of time with them, talking to them about what they're up to and what's happening. Really, that was not networking. What I was doing, I was just socializing. I was a little bit outside my comfort zone because I was uncomfortable in that environment. But ultimately, what I was doing is not really growing, because I was just talking to the people I already know. It can feel really uncomfortable and strange going up to people we don't know, introducing ourselves and starting to speak to them. And this is, for some people, very uncomfortable. But there's some great icebreakers you can use. Of course, you can use the great one. Do you come here often? No, that one really does not work. It's the wrong one for the wrong place. The kind of question you want to do is that makes it nice and easy. You'd maybe go in and say, hey, mind if I join you? Say if there's somebody maybe on their own, there might be a couple of people speaking. What you want to do is just make it really easy to start a conversation. So you'd have a few questions up your sleeve just to get the conversation going. It might be, how are you finding the evening so far? Or if it's a daytime networking meeting, you know, what's the one thing you've found useful so far from today? Or it might be, is this a local meeting for you? Is this a kind of event you come to regularly? Ultimately, what you're looking to do is just get a conversation started, just so it breaks the ice, and then it doesn't feel so uncomfortable. Now, the person you're speaking to, it may be that they're also feeling a little bit uncomfortable in that environment right now as well. It might be the first time they're networking, or maybe they're not a great networker as well, and they're thinking, hey, I found somebody who wants to speak to me, and you've now found yourself a new best friend that wants to be with you for the rest of the day. Now, remember, you're there to network, so you're not there to find a best friend for the rest of the day. So there's techniques that we can use, and I'll talk about those in a moment in terms of how to move on with those conversations. But remember, what we're doing is you're there with a clear outcome of what you want to achieve, and you're going to be meeting many people. One is you go in looking to connect with as many people as you possibly can. You're just collecting as many leads as you can. And the other way is you're meeting fewer people, but you're having more meaningful conversations. Now, sometimes it can depend on the type of event and the size of event it is, for what type of technique that you're going to use. Step 2 is focusing on how you can serve the other person. And what I mean here is you genuinely, authentically do the very best you can to help the individual that you're speaking to and having that conversation with. Now, we've all met people at networking events that come up and say, hey, I'm Big Shot, we do this, we do that, we do the other. Ultimately, all they're doing is weeing all over themselves. And they're not the kind of people that get very far. And what you want to do is try and create a strong connection so you can be of benefit to somebody else. Many people walk around in life, not just at networking events, with their antennas tuned into a radio station that's WIIFM. What's in it for me? And that's just natural for everybody to be thinking about what's in it for me when they're speaking to somebody else. What you've got to think about is how you can serve the other person, help the other person. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to use these in ratio to what we have. So for example, 2 ears to 1 mouth. So that means we do a lot more listening than we do speaking. And sometimes it's just really a case of asking great questions to allow the other person to open up and just start speaking. One of the easiest ways to do that is just to have great eye contact. And that means you're looking at the person straight in their eyes As opposed to what you see sometimes is when you're having a conversation here, people are really looking over there and they're looking over there. What they're doing is looking at who else is around so I can go off and speak to them. And that's generally not being present. You're not serving that person. And what you're trying to do is really try and find somebody else to speak to. That's what your body language is saying as well. But when you're looking at somebody direct in the eyes, you are focusing on what they're saying and you're listening and paying attention so that you can think about how is it that I can help and serve this person. Now, right now you might be thinking, hey, I'm there to serve myself. I've got certain needs that need meeting. I need to find an investor. I need to find a deal or whatever it might be. But remember, the more people you can help and serve, you'll be amazed that it actually comes back in abundance for you. Now, you might be following these steps at a networking event. You've got a clear outcome of what is it you're trying to achieve at that event. But the person you're speaking to, they might not necessarily have a clear outcome of what is it they want from the networking event. They've just heard, hey, there's lots of people that are in business or property. They should go along and meet some other people as well. So they might not be that clear. So when you're asking questions about what is it they're doing or what is it they're looking for, they might not necessarily know. One of my most favorite questions to ask people in that situation is, what's the one thing that would really help accelerate your business right now? And the reason I love that question is because firstly, it focuses down to one key thing. And secondly, it's what's going to be most impactful for them right now, so that you can then consider that answer and think about, who is it that I can connect this person with? Now, sometimes it might be there's somebody in the room that you can connect that person with. Other times it might be you need to just consider who it is that you might be able to connect them with, or you might need to make a phone call for them before you actually connect them with someone that might be able to help them. Before we go into step number 3, if you're enjoying this and you're really going to enjoy coming along to our networking event, which we hold once a month in Birmingham, we have about 100 plus people in the room for you to network with, like-minded people, learn about property. We also have great speakers as well. We'll put a link in the description for you so you can see when the next event is and book onto that, and hey, maybe we can network and chat there as well. And of course, if you are enjoying this content, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also like this video as well, and let us know in the comment section what it is that you'd like to see in future videos that would help you. Step 3 is business cards. What do you do with them? How do you use them? How many do you need? Do you collect them? Do you give them? People are often confused about how to use business cards, and hey, look, I didn't have all the answer when I started as well, but over the years I learned how to be more effective with business cards. So the first thing I do is I try and focus on collecting cards as opposed to giving cards out, because the person that's got the contact details, they're the ones that most likely to follow up. And we've all seen people that go around to networking events, they just kind of shove their business card under everybody's nose, and all they're doing is spreading them around like confetti, throwing them around, thinking that they're going to pick up leads. That's really not a way to network. What you want to do is have a conversation with somebody and have a meaningful conversation. Personally, I always ask for a business card, and then when I receive the card, I have a good look at it and try and see what contact details I've got on there. I ask them things like what's their preferred method of them being contacted as well. So for example, they might have a phone number, an email address on there, they might have social media on there. What's their preferred method of being able to communicate and respond? So that way, when you are following up with that person, you're using the preferred route and the best way to be able to get in touch with that person. And what I prefer to do is I like to make notes on the card so I remember what the conversation was with around that person. Because let's face it, if you speak to 10 people at a networking event, you're not necessarily going to remember what conversation you've had with who about what particular property and where they're based. You're just not going to remember. It's difficult to do that. So this way, by making notes on the card, I've got some kind of reference point to be able to follow up afterwards. But the really important thing is, before you do that, always ask permission, because that way sometimes people can get offended if you start scribbling all over their business card. You ask, would it be okay if I just write a few notes on your card? I've never had anybody say no, they don't want that to happen, but at least you've asked before you start defacing their business card that they might love dearly. On the topic of handing out business cards, what I like to do is have a business card that has a photo. And the reason I like to have a photo on my business card is that way people remember you when they go back and look at their cards afterwards, and they've got like a pile of cards like this, and they look through those, and if you've got a picture on there, you're going to be much more memorable. They're going to remember that somebody you've spoken to. I try to leave lots of white space on the card to encourage other people to write on the card as well, so that it's much more likely that it's a connection for them. With contact details, I usually have a few different contact details on there, but the main thing is I like to have a clear benefit for that person as to how I can help them. Make sure you watch all the way to the end, because I'm going to share with you 7 quick fire tips as well. Step 4 is to make sure you follow up on those leads. Now, business is not necessarily going to be done in the room. You know, I've yet to meet somebody that I bump into a networking event for the first time. I talk to them about a project I'm doing, and they pull out their checkbook and say, right, how much is it that you need for that deal? I'll write the check out for you now. No, it doesn't happen because it takes time to build those relationships. But the only way that's going to happen if you follow up. There's too many people, and I've been guilty of this myself, that will go along to networking events, they'll come back with loads of cards, they'll put them on their desk, and they actually don't do anything with them. And they'll go to another networking event, then they'll collect another bundle of cards and they stack them on top of that. And before you know it, along the shelf on the side of the desk, you've got all these cards piled up and you've got dust gathering up on them. And then after a few months, you look at them and you think, what are all these cards? Why are they even here? Because you've not bothered doing the most important part, is to follow up and start building that connection. My preference to arrange follow-up in the room when you meet somebody. So when you've got their business card, and if you haven't got their business card, whether you've got a notepad or where you're putting a note straight into your phone, however you choose to do it, you at that moment in time say, hey look, what would be the best way for us to follow up? And in terms of arrange a meeting or a discussion to discuss this further, or you arrange something directly there and then, you get your diary out and say, hey, would it be okay if I call you a Thursday? I can do 11 o'clock or 4 o'clock, which one would suit you best? And you get it straight into the diary. And then that way you've already agreed it, whether it's going to be a phone call, it's going to be a Zoom, or whatever it's going to be, how you're actually going to follow up and move to the next step. But remember, you'll have already asked them earlier on what their preferred method of communication is, because if it's a WhatsApp, as it is for me, for example, then what that means is you're much more likely to get through to the person and get response quickly if you use their preferred method of communicating. The final step, step 5, is the nurturing of that relationship. So what I mean by that is the initial follow-up will be a conversation, maybe a meeting you might have, but then the business is not going to necessarily happen overnight. As I said, it might be you start some conversation with them, it might be they're introducing you to somebody else, it might be you're trying to connect them with somebody that might be able to help them. But this is at this stage what I call an exploratory lead, where you start having a conversation, see if there's anything you can do for each other. Remember, ultimately this is started with how you can serve them and help them. And if there is something that they can help you with, if it comes up in the conversation, that's fine. Personally, I never say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, can you help me with this? Unless they invite that, I tend not to say that. But you can take the conversation how it flows, but ultimately you're trying to build a relationship here. Because remember, people will buy from people they know, like and trust. And what the nurturing is an opportunity for them to get to know you, like you and trust you, so that some business can form from that. They're the 5 steps for power networking, but what I want to share with you now is 7 quick fire tips to really help you put your networking on steroids. The first one is make sure you connect with the host of the event, because they tend to be a super connector. They will know everybody in the room often, and they can connect you to many other people much faster than you working the room individually one at a time. And earlier I said, make sure you don't stick with one person all evening, and an easy way to do that is you park them with somebody else. And a way to do that is once you've had a little chat with them and you say, hey look, we're here networking, let me come and introduce you to somebody else. You just connect them with somebody else you may have met that evening, and you let them continue their conversation and you move on. That way you can very easily move on to somebody else rather than being stuck with them all evening. When you're using business cards, make sure you use both sides of the business card. That way you're not wasting the valuable space that you have. As I mentioned earlier, it also leaves some space for people to make notes on as well. Then when you're meeting somebody, make sure you've got a firm handshake. Nobody likes a fishy handshake. So a nice firm handshake, it creates confidence in the conversation as well, and also gets a nice feeling when somebody's starting that conversation with you. Having a great elevator pitch is really important, but you don't know when you might need it. So mine generally is, hey, I use my time, skill and experience to find fantastic property investment opportunities. Then I partner with people who've got the funds to share the opportunity with. Just like that, you might have a great elevator pitch that's ready and up your sleeve for whenever you might need it. Quickfire tip 6 is to make sure you haven't got BO and bad breath, because nobody likes to be having a conversation with somebody and they have to hold their nose, or they're trying not to breathe when they're standing to somebody very close. We've all been in uncomfortable situations like that, so make sure you've got some great mints in your pocket as well, so you've got nice fresh breath when you're speaking to somebody. And finally, tip 7 is to read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. One of my most favorite books on people and psychology and conversation. I've barely scratched the surface on this topic. That book talks about these kind of things in a lot more detail, so make sure you read that book. Hey, if you've enjoyed this video on networking, then you are really going to love what we got lined up over here next for you. But just before you do that, make sure you click on my face down here to subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you on this next video just over here. Didn't even get my weeing joke.
Yeah.